Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, we're discussing my thoughts on Season 2, Episode 14 of Star Trek Discovery, entitled Such Sweet Sorrow, Part 2. For all intents and purposes, the Season 2 finale of Star Trek Discovery, and it was, in a word, interesting. I'll give him that. For a change-up, I'm wearing my Starfleet gold, replete with incorrect Delta insignia, more modern one than than this particular era, and even the wrong shade of gold, I know, but you got to kind of work with what you got. And strictly to put it out there for you, the viewer, that at least as far as I'm concerned, the thing I was most resoundingly left with at the end of this finale is a strong, monumental desire for a Captain Pike focused series, focusing maybe perhaps on the second 5-year mission between Pike, Spock, number one, and everything like that, hoping to see Anson Mount, Ethan Peck, and Rebecca Romaine reprising their roles. I would just love it. I was left chomping at the bit, especially when Spock comes on to the bridge at the end of the episode with the shave and a haircut, 2 bits. And my 2 bits are, give me that series, CBS. Announce it. You got the set built, you got the Enterprise bridge, you got the corridors, the special effects are all in the bag, the CGI ship effects and whatever like that. I will tune in with badge on, and it'll be nobody's business how hardcore I follow that series. That was really the strongest element of this finale to me. Was almost like a backdoor pilot where we leave off. We don't leave off with Discovery and Burnham and all of these characters. They're in the future now, whatever like that. We'll pick up with them in Season 3, presumably. So, I mean, how does this all come to a close? It comes to a close on the Enterprise with Pike, with Spock, with number one. Give me that series, CBS. The finale itself was okay. It was somewhat passively kind of enjoyable. I think there were a lot of things that I went into this finale expecting and speculating, and a lot of the execution of it was just kind of paint by numbers, really. Like I knew because of what Ash Tyler had said in the previous episode, he kind of tipped the hat that he was going to be going and getting L'Rell and the Klingons. I knew, even though there was this tension-mounting ticking clock all through the episode, that at some point they would show up as the cavalry coming over the hill, metaphorically speaking. And it was just a matter of, okay, when is that going to happen? Because the whole episode is a lot of pew-pew-pew space battle. And I know there's just a tremendous amount of debate comparing and contrasting Seth MacFarlane's The Orville and Star Trek Discovery. Not that I want to stoke the fires, but I think the space battle we got at the end of the Kalon 2-parter in Season 2 of The Orville was maybe done a little bit better, because this whole space battle, while I did get that sense of momentum and the ticking clock and everything like that, everything was so frenetically paced all throughout it. It was much more closely resembling those complaints you hear about the Michael Bay Transformers movies, where the action is so frenetic and it's cutting and bibbing and bobbing and jumping and, jump cuts and this, that, and the other thing. You can't really necessarily make sense of everything that's going on and what you're seeing at all times. And we're cutting back and forth between the pew-pew-pew and on the Enterprise and on the Discovery and Michael Burnham getting the suit together and everything just, the space battle itself was just kind of like a big glom of just action that was like mindless. I didn't feel tension in that estimation at all whatsoever. It did throw me for a loop on a couple occasions, like Poe, the princess, sneaking off with her own shuttle and sort of gauging all the drone ships. I mean, this could have been the lost Star Wars, Star Trek crossover, Attack of the Drones, with all the drones that were fighting in this thing. And what was with the Enterprise? The Enterprise has these little robots, and they come out and they're like fixing the hull or whatever. Since when? That was one of those things where it was like, where'd that come from? Saru's people, his sister, they apparently, made amends, borrowed some of the tech of the Baul and everything like that. So they come a-calling, they're going to aid in this effort, and that was surprising. It was surprising. But I think in the execution of this episode, it never fully resounded and excited me as previous episodes in this season had done. Even just the previous episode, Such Sweet Sorrow Part 1, was uber resounding, was exciting, had me on the edge of my seat. I was chomping at the bit by the end of it to get to this finale. And at the time of recording of my previous episode discussion video, I had said that was like the best episode of the season for me at that point. Previous to that was when they went back to Talos and Pike reconnected with Vina and the Telosians and all that kind of stuff. In the middle between the Talos return and last week's episode was Pike's vision on Boreth of his, future, his destiny. And these were stellar, just mind-blowing moments. And this finale, it never got even remotely near that for me. It never got that resounding for me at all. I hate to say that, but I can only, sort of report and discuss how I was left feeling after it. There was a moment that kind of threw me for a loop as well. Not only the little robots on the hull of the saucer of the Enterprise, but Georgiou leads, Leland, who we knew was going to come over to the ship. Again, just a ticking clock, matter of time. When is it going to come about? When is it going to happen? She leads him to the spore chamber, turns on the gravity and whatever like that. And it was like, as soon as he's gone, as soon as he died, air quotes, which was kind of unnerving with all the nanobots coming out of his face, like just pouring out of his skull. All of his drones ceased to function. All of Control's drones ceased to function. And the portal's open and Michael's leading the Discovery and whatever like that. Spock is back on the Enterprise. And I had this fleeting moment where I was like, well, if Control is dead, why do they still need to go? I mean, I get it. I already had the answer in mind that no, they still have the sphere data and everything like that. And as long as it exists within this time frame, it is still a danger, potentially. But so then that leads us to the big Alex Kurtzman answer for why everything is going to align and make sense with TOS and things like that. Why Spock never mentions Michael. Why we never heard of the Discovery before, or the Spore Drive before, and this, that, and the other thing. It'll all, air quotes, make sense by the end. How did they decide to make it make sense? How did they decide to align it by the end of this finale? A little strangely edited sort of soliloquy where each of the officers involved, remaining via the Enterprise, including Ash Tyler, they're all sort of talking to a superior about Discoveries having been lost. And it is then proffered by Spock that if we really want to put a lock on the box, we shove everything about Discovery, the Spore Drive, Control, the sphere data, all this kind of stuff. We put it all in a box, we put a lock on it, and we make it an offense. A very high, lofty offense of treason. If anybody, anywhere, ever mentions, thinks about, refers to, hints, whispers about any of Star Trek Discovery, of any of its elements, of any of its characters, people are going to be court-martialed, arrested for committing treason. Think of all the families left over. I mean, granted, maybe a dozen crew members or 24 crew members left on Discovery that, took this trip to the future. Surely they all have relatives they left behind. Or is there going to be some paid compensation in this utopian future where money doesn't exist anymore? So that is why we never heard of Discovery before now in the original series. That is why we never heard about Michael Burnham, Spock's sister, who is so connected to him and replete with his own interpersonal identity. Treason. And because convenience would have it that we don't know what happened to him, but we do know what happened to him, but nobody can know what happened to him. So forget about it. It turned into Sopranos. Forget about it. Oh man. It brought with it this finale the same issues I had with season one's finale. It was wrapped up a little too quickly, a little too conveniently. And it was a paint by numbers. I already have most of it figured out, and it's just a matter of time for each of these beats to be reached. The only redeeming element of this particular finale for me was Spock's cognizant realization that the reason Michael couldn't launch to the future when she first initially tried was because she had not yet, sort of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure style, gone back and already sent out the red signals. She still had yet to do that. And before she could launch to the future, she had to complete that task. And so we get that whole, bouncing back and forth of her going to all of these previous events where those signals had debuted all across season 2. Complete with the little flashbacks of fastly edited footage to remind us of each of those events. And it was that dawning realization on Spock's part that I was like, oh, okay. Because I was kind of stymied by why it just wasn't going to work. Michael's in the suit. They got the suit all together. She's ready to go. And it's not working. I don't know what's going on. She's flapping her wings and like nothing's happening. So Spock's realization in that moment, it was like, oh, okay, cool. I dig it. As a fan of time travel, I like the fact that she had to complete those tasks. It had to be put into motion. She had to set everything into motion. And even though it was, again, a sort of plot contrivance convenience thing, I do like how it was explained that she had to bring about finding Jet Reno and saving her because she was going to be an integral factor. Bringing the ship to where Poe the princess was, and all of these elements, going to Boreth, leading Discovery there. It made a sort of pseudo sense, And so I was like, all right, I'll swallow it. I can palate that. And then Spock is back on the Enterprise. Discovery is lost. We have this little, again, vignette of just a strangely edited, people popping in and out of the chair, though the higher up conducting the interviews never moves, never fluctuates, but everyone else does, popping in and out of the, sort of the hot seat. I didn't really like it. It was strange. It was odd. It kind of reminded me, going back, sort of bookending, if you will. Everything is cyclical. It kind of went back to the end of the premiere of the first season of Star Trek Discovery, where Michael Burnham faced her accusers and was on trial for all intents and purposes mutiny, starting the Klingon War. And so I was like, okay, it's kind of poetic, like George Lucas might say, it kind of rhymes. But then we got the piece de resistance of this episode, going back on the Enterprise. Spock gets a shave and a haircut, 2 bits. I will always say it. Shave and a haircut, 2 bits. Or maybe it's one of these. And he comes out on the bridge. Number one, her eyebrows make a beeline for her hairline, and Pike smiles knowingly, and Spock goes over to the positioning of his science console on the bridge, where it would later be in TOS and everything like that. And I loved during the end credits, I have to give them credit, no pun intended, for meshing the theme of Star Trek Discovery with the theme of Star Trek the original series. I liked how it was contrasting back and forth melodically. But again, for all intents and purposes, the events of this episode, most of it happened kind of sort of exactly how I figured it would. And it was just a matter of, painting by numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, here we go. All the pieces are fitting into place much how I expected them to. Even to the point of like Stamets and Culber, I had been spoiled that Stamets would be injured, and I figured as soon as I knew that, I think I saw an image somewhere, or it was in the trailer or something like that. I don't remember, because I've seen some images that were released for this episode just before watching it today, as of the time of this recording. So I had it kind of spoiled, and as soon as I knew that Stamets was going to be injured, I knew there was going to be a moment between he and Culber where Culber professed his renewed love for him. Wherever we go, we're going to go together. And I mean, I called that line before he even said it. Like, I thought of it, and then he spoke it aloud, and I was like, you know. But it was all so, I hate to use the word, but it was utmost predictable. And for that reason, and probably that reason alone, I just didn't find it exciting and resounding as every other episode this season had been. Now, I will add, you know, with that 2 cents, those sentiments, because we saw the Enterprise in dry dock being sort of, you know, fixed up and everything like that, I had wondered if they were going to be refitting the ship, and, you know, we would see it come out of dry dock just before going to warp, and it would be the proper sort of TOS version of the Enterprise again. I don't know why I thought that. You know, I had this weird sort of timey-wimey, to borrow from Doctor Who, that particular terminology, vision in my head that as soon as Michael and the Discovery disappeared, everything would suddenly warp. There would be like a whoosh, you know, like Wayne's World, and suddenly we would be in TOS proper, and like maybe we'd see a CGI Jeffrey Hunter on the bridge, and what was that, Spock? I don't know, sir, you know, and then whatever, like, signals detected. No, none of that. Just Starfleet Gold, the wrong insignia for the era. I want the Pike Show. Give us the Pike Show. Work it out, CBS. And as to what the future beholds for Star Trek, in multiple forms, I might add, not just Star Trek Discovery Season 3, which we know pretty much nothing, zero, zilch, nada about as of the time of this recording. We've also got the Picard show. We've also got an animated series or 2. So, you know, I mean, more Star Trek is on the horizon, which is good. Give us the Pike series. You know, Spock got his shave and a haircut, 2 bits. Give us the Pike series. And that's really all I got for you. For this finale, it was all right. It was passable. It was predictable. And I just really wanted a different show by the end of it. One man's opinion. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of the finale of Season 2 of Star Trek Discovery. Love it or hate it, anything goes in the comments below as always, as long as you are respectable and sharing your opinion and are respectful of others if they happen to disagree. Don't skewer me if you loved it. If you just loved every dripping minute of it, we have no qualms, we have no concerns between us. I'm happy for you if you did. And, you know, if you didn't, let me know why. Otherwise, if you enjoyed this video and would like to consider supporting my channel, please have a look at my PayPal support link posted both in the description as well as the comments below. Anything you saw fit to send my way would be 2 thumbs up for me and secure my longevity on YouTube for the foreseeable future. And so yeah, I guess we're going to have a little bit of a wait before any more Star Trek sort of content. Hopefully something will come down the pike, no pun intended, that I'll be able to discuss. And I'll see you when I see you. Otherwise, I hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Live long and prosper.